the 5 exercise workout that actually made my shoulders grow. Let's be honest, weak, underdeveloped shoulders ruin any physique, no matter how much you've built the rest of your body. A study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research demonstrated that shoulder width is the aesthetic factor that most influences the perception of an athletic physique, ranking even above chest and arm size. Unfortunately, most people spend years training their shoulders the wrong way, sticking to the same exercises with the same poor technique, expecting different results, and then blaming genetics. That's why today you'll see the 5 exercises that complement each other perfectly, providing a complete workout that will actually make your shoulders grow. Before we get started, please tell us in the comments your name and the city where you're watching our content. We'd love to know. First, we need to briefly talk about the 4 most common mistakes that 90% of people make when training shoulders, because having the right workout won't matter if you keep making silly errors. Mistake number 1, leaving shoulder exercises for the end of the workout. It's very common to find routines that combine chest, shoulders, and triceps in the same session, and almost always, shoulders end up last. In theory, it seems like a reasonable idea to take advantage of the warm-up generated by the previous exercises. In practice, what happens is that you arrive at the shoulder exercises already with fatigued muscles, compromised strength levels, and a significantly reduced ability to maintain good technical execution. The accumulated fatigue not only decreases the load you can handle, but also encourages postural compensations that shift the work away from the deltoids and onto other muscles like the trapezius and neck. The result is a technically poor set with low load and insufficient stimulus to generate real hypertrophy. In the world of bodybuilding, there's an old and well-founded consensus. Weak points must be prioritized. If the goal is to develop the shoulders, they should be trained at the beginning of the session. When energy is at its peak, the central nervous system is fully recovered and strength is at its maximum level. This is especially true if you identify your shoulders as a weak point or an area you want to develop as a priority. Mistake number 2, letting the trapezius do most of the work. If you've ever done a lateral raise and left the gym without feeling anything in your shoulders, this is probably your problem. During exercises like the lateral raise, the trapezius has a natural tendency to take over the movement, especially when the weight used is excessive or when the exercise is performed with momentum and postural compensations. This happens because the trapezius is a large, strong muscle that is anatomically well positioned to steal the effort that should be directed to the deltoids. To keep the correct focus and ensure the exercise fulfills its purpose, a few key strategies are essential. Using a weight you can control throughout the full range of motion is the mandatory starting point. Not raising the arms above shoulder level is essential, since it's precisely that excess range that invites the trapezius to take over. Consciously keeping the shoulders down during the movement, as if you were pulling your shoulders away from your ears, makes a huge difference in deltoid recruitment. Additionally, keeping an upright posture with a slight bend in the knees and executing the movement in a controlled manner, both on the way up and on the way down, ensures that time under tension acts on the right muscles. Mistake number 3, low training volume for shoulders. Many practitioners train shoulders only once a week within a combined workout with other muscles, performing only 2 or 3 exercises per session. This volume is clearly insufficient for those seeking maximum hypertrophy in this area. The shoulders are a complex structure made up of multiple muscles, the main ones being the anterior deltoid, the lateral deltoid, and the posterior deltoid, each with a different function and each requiring specific stimuli to grow proportionally. Treating this entire muscle complex with 2 exercises per week is vastly underestimating what this musculature needs to respond. The science of training is quite clear on this. The adaptive response of a muscle depends directly on the volume and frequency of the stimuli it receives throughout the week. To adequately stimulate growth, it's necessary to ensure sufficient volume and frequency. Training shoulders at least twice a week with variation in exercises and angles worked. Dedicating at least one specific day to shoulder training is highly recommended, as it allows full focus on the technique and intensity required, while also preventing the fatigue generated by training larger muscles like the pectorals and back from compromising the quality of the exercises. Mistake number 4, neglecting the lateral deltoid and the posterior deltoid. This is probably the most common mistake and also the most silent one, because many people don't even realize they're making it. Since popular exercises like the bench press, the fly, and various pushing movements already significantly significantly activate the anterior deltoid, it ends up receiving indirect stimulus in practically every chest workout. The problem is that the lateral deltoid and the posterior deltoid don't receive that indirect attention and need to be worked directly and intentionally to grow. The lateral deltoid is precisely the portion responsible for that appearance of wide, full shoulders, being the main contributor to the V-taper silhouette so sought after by gym goers. The posterior deltoid completes the aesthetic of the shoulders when viewed from the side or from behind, and plays a vital role in the stabilization and mobility of the shoulder joint as a whole. Neglecting these portions creates a disproportionate, aesthetically unbalanced musculature that is far more susceptible to injury as the balance of forces around the joint becomes compromised. The solution is to include lateral raises for the lateral deltoid and reverse fly or face pull exercises for the posterior deltoid using a cable or machine to ensure constant tension and higher quality stimulus. And that is exactly why our workout is based on 5 very well-chosen movements. One focused on the anterior deltoid, which as you've already seen is already well stimulated in chest workouts, 2 exercises focused on the lateral deltoid, and 2 on the posterior deltoid, which simply don't receive enough attention in most routines out there. Exercise number 1, dumbbell shoulder press. We start with the dumbbell press for a very simple and strategic reason. It's a compound exercise, meaning it recruits multiple muscle groups at the same time, and within any quality workout, compound exercises always come first. This is the principle of organizing a workout from the most demanding to the most isolated, ensuring that the greatest workload reaches the muscles when they're still fresh and strong. In addition to the anterior and lateral deltoids, which are the primarily targeted portions, the dumbbell shoulder press actively recruits the triceps as a secondary mover and requires constant isometric contraction from the core to stabilize the trunk throughout the movement. The choice of dumbbells over a barbell is not random. By using 2 independent implements, the exercise requires each arm to work individually, which corrects muscular imbalances between sides that would be masked by a barbell, while also providing a greater range of motion, allowing the dumbbells to drop slightly below shoulder level and increase the stretch on the deltoids. To execute correctly, you can opt for the seated version on a bench with an upright backrest, which limits lower back compensation, or the standing version with a well-braced core. Hold the dumbbells at shoulder height with your palms facing forward and your elbows slightly in front of the body's plane. From there, press the dumbbells upward in a controlled manner until the elbows are almost fully extended without locking them at the top. Then lower slowly and deliberately. The eccentric phase, meaning the lowering, is frequently neglected but represents an enormous portion of the exercise's hypertrophy potential. When you lower the weight quickly and without control, you're wasting half the available stimulus in every set. The most common mistakes in this exercise are excessively arching the lower back to gain momentum on the way up, which transfers the effort from the deltoids to the lower back and neck. Letting the elbows drop too far below shoulder level on the descent, which reduces tension on the muscle, and using weights that are too heavy and compromise the entire technique. Perform 3 to 4 sets of 8 to 12 repetitions with progressive overload across the weeks. Main contraindications include rotator cuff injuries, subacromial impingement syndrome, shoulder tendonitis, and cervical disc herniations. In these cases, the exercise should be avoided or adapted with professional guidance. Exercise number 2, cable lateral raise. The cable lateral raise is the natural evolution of the dumbbell lateral raise for those who want to maximize stimulus on the lateral deltoid, and the reason for this comes directly from the physics of the movement. With dumbbells, the tension on the muscle is practically zero at the start of the exercise when the arms are by the sides of the body and increases as you raise the arms. With the cable, this equation changes completely. The tension remains constant throughout the entire movement, including during the initial phase, which means more time under tension across the full range of motion, and consequently greater stimulus for a lateral deltoid. Hypertrophy. This kind of technical detail is exactly what separates an efficient workout from a merely average one. To execute, position yourself sideways to the cable with the pulley set as low as possible. Hold the handle with the hand opposite to the cable, which means crossing the cable slightly in front of the body. Keep the torso slightly tilted toward the machine, which helps stabilize the movement and positions the lateral deltoid at a more favorable angle. Raise the arm laterally to shoulder height with a slight bend in the elbow, as if you were holding a tray, and return slowly and in a controlled manner, resisting the cable tension throughout the entire descent. Remember, the controlled lowering is worth just as much as the upward phase in terms of muscular stimulus. The most common mistakes are using excessive load, which immediately causes compensation from the trapezius and neck, removing all work from the lateral deltoid, raising the arm above shoulder height, which is a direct invitation to subacromial impingement, and not controlling the return return phase. A clean execution with less weight is worth far more than a heavy weight executed carelessly. Perform 3 to 4 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions. People with rotator cuff injuries, bursitis, or glenohumeral instability should seek professional evaluation before performing the exercise. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Having constant access to science-based information is what will allow you to make long-term progress safely in the world of exercise. Exercise number 3, reverse fly on the machine. If the lateral deltoid is the muscle that creates shoulder width, the posterior deltoid is what creates depth, aesthetic completeness, and above all, long-term joint health. It is the most neglected portion in most people's shoulder workouts, and ironically, one of the most important. A shoulder joint with a weak posterior deltoid is unbalanced and far more vulnerable to repetitive strain injuries. By working the posterior deltoid, the reverse fly on the machine also recruits the rhomboids and the middle trapezius, muscles that play a fundamental role in scapular retraction and in maintaining correct posture. It is no coincidence that people with rounded, forward-shifted shoulders and a kyphotic posture almost always present exactly this region as weak and underdeveloped. Working this exercise is investing in both the aesthetics and the functionality of your shoulder at the same time. We chose the machine for this exercise because of the stability it offers and the ease of isolating the movement without other areas needing to compensate. To execute, adjust the seat so that the handles are exactly at shoulder height. Sit facing the machine, hold the handles with your arms slightly bent, and open them horizontally to the sides as if you were trying to hug the air around a large tree. At the end point of the movement, pause briefly and consciously contract the back of the shoulder and the space between the shoulder blades before returning slowly and in a controlled manner. If you don't like the machine or don't want to wait for it, you can reproduce this movement with full effectiveness using 2 dumbbells and a bench, leaning the torso forward and performing the same lateral opening gesture with the arms. The most frequent mistakes are using too much weight, which causes the upper trapezius and neck to completely dominate the movement, and not controlling the eccentric phase, returning the weight quickly without any real use of the stimulus. Perform 3 to 4 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions. Contraindications include rotator cuff injuries, biceps tendonitis, and acute cervical pain, situations that require professional evaluation and guidance before training. Exercise number 4, dumbbell lateral raise. The dumbbell lateral raise is an absolute classic in shoulder training, and for good reason. When performed correctly, it is one of the most efficient tools for developing the lateral deltoid and creating that wide shoulder appearance that contributes so much to the V-taper silhouette. You've already seen the cable lateral raise, which has the advantage of constant tension throughout the range of motion. The dumbbell version earns its place in the workout through its practicality, freedom of movement, and the ability to be performed virtually anywhere without depending on specific equipment. Regular practitioners who include both variations tend to show more complete and symmetrical development of the lateral deltoid over time. Despite appearing simple, the dumbbell lateral raise requires a great deal of attention to technique in order for the work to truly fall on the deltoid and not on the trapezius. To execute correctly, stand or sit with the dumbbells at the sides of your body. Maintain a slight bend in the elbows throughout the entire movement, never fully extending the arms, as this would place unnecessary stress on the joint. Raise the arms laterally to shoulder height with the palms facing the floor or slightly angled downward, as if you were pouring water out of a glass. This detail of the thumb slightly lowered is one of the most impactful for correct lateral deltoid recruitment, so pay close attention to it. Return slowly and in a controlled manner, resisting the weight throughout the entire descent. The most common mistakes are using excessive load with trunk swinging to create momentum, raising the arms above shoulder height, which overloads the trapezius and rotator cuff, and lifting the weight quickly without any control on the descent. Perform 3 to 4 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions. The contraindications are similar to the other lateral raise variations. Subacromial impingement syndrome, bursitis, rotator cuff injuries, and joint instabilities should be evaluated by a professional before training. Exercise. Number 5. Face pull on the cable. The face pull on the cable is, without exaggeration, one of the most complete and most underrated exercises for the shoulder region. Unlike the previous exercises, which focus on 1 or 2 portions of the deltoids, the face pull acts more broadly. It simultaneously works the posterior deltoid, the rotator cuff, and the scapular retractor muscles, such as the rhomboids and the middle trapezius. In addition to promoting aesthetic development of the posterior shoulder, it is widely recommended by physical therapists as a corrective exercise for people with kyphotic posture and rounded shoulders. The rotator cuff strengthening provided by this exercise is especially valuable for those who train consistently and heavily, since rotator cuff health is literally what but allows you to keep training without injury over the years. To execute, set the pulley at eye level or slightly above. Use a rope attachment and hold both ends with your palms facing inward. Take 1 or 2 steps back to create tension in the cable even before initiating the movement. From there, pull the rope toward your face while opening the elbows outward and upward, finishing with your hands at ear level and the elbows aligned with or slightly above shoulder height. At the end point, pause briefly, consciously contracting the posterior deltoid and the muscles between the shoulder blades before returning slowly and in a controlled manner. You'll know you're doing it correctly when you clearly feel the work in the back of the shoulder and upper back, not in the neck or trapezius. The most common mistakes are pulling the cable below eye level, which completely changes the working angle and drastically reduces posterior deltoid recruitment, letting the elbows drop during the movement, and using excessive weight that compromises the external rotation characteristic of the exercise. The face pull is an exercise of technical quality, not brute strength, and should be performed with moderate loads and full attention to the movement. Perform 3 to 4 sets of 15 to 20 repetitions, always prioritizing quality above any other variable. The main contraindication is acute shoulder pain or severe rotator cuff injuries, although in many cases of mild injuries, the exercise is precisely part of the rehabilitation process, always with adequate professional supervision. If you enjoyed this and also want to discover the main reasons why your chest isn't growing the way it should, and the best workout to fix that, we've left a video appearing on screen right now showing each of them in detail. Make sure to check it out. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and God bless you, my friend.